Hello, Malcolm here, and thanks for joining me on today's Sunday Sample. This is episode 94, and it's about what to do when the congregation just isn't with you. You know those moments? You're leading worship in some way or other, you're preaching, you're leading a song, you're singing, and you just feel the group aren't there. It's almost like they're not present. They're physically in the room, but emotionally, spiritually, there's no connection with, perhaps you feel with yourself, but maybe also with God and with one another. What do we do when just the congregation isn't quite with it? This happened to me recently. I was leading worship, helping to do so in a particular church context, and the singing was okay, and the worship leading was, I think, okay, but there was something missing. There was a disconnect. Something was not quite as it normally is. There was a lack of healthy engagement with the songs, the lyrics, the words, so it seemed to me at least. I felt that we had individual people in their chairs, but they weren't really gelled. There didn't seem to be a real connection with our God, and some enthusiasm was lacking, and I couldn't put my finger on it. And I had to decide what to do with it. And I decided not to stop the service and do something about it at the time. We'll talk about the merits of that or otherwise in a minute. I decided to take it away, pray about it, think about it. And indeed, that's why I'm recording this video and podcast, to ask you what you think about the best way to handle it when you get that sense that there's a lack of engagement, a sense of distraction, something isn't quite as you think it is, not just ought to be, but is healthy. What do we do in those circumstances? So I'd like to know what you think, but here are three options that I came up with, at least for now. So the first option in this kind of situation is to do nothing, which is what I did on that particular Sunday. We don't do anything, and that's a good option to do if we're not sure what to do. There's no point in doing something for the sake of it. We're not sure what to do, then let's take a few moments to go away afterwards and think about it. And I wonder whether it was something to do with, it could be to do with the song selection, it could be to do with personal preparation, it could be to do with the team's preparation. There are lots of things it could be to do with. In the meantime, we decide not to do anything right now. Instead, what we can do at least is pray internally, perhaps between songs or even during a song, offer up a one word or a one phrase prayer to God saying, please help me and help the congregation just in the moment. But that's the first option, is to do nothing, at least practically outwardly. The second option is to pause the service. Is to take a moment to pause the service, to break up the worship, but without commenting on the reason you're doing it. So rather than bring to the fore the idea that I'm not sure we're together here with God, we could just, in between perhaps a couple of songs, we could just lead a prayer or read a scripture or quote a scripture, something like that, that we hope would then help people to be more directly spiritually minded, and then we move on with the worship, and perhaps then it would get healthier and more engaged. So that's your second option, I think, is to break up the worship. And the third option is to make a direct comment, which would involve breaking up the worship, but then saying something in particular about why you're doing it. You might say something like, I'm sensing that we're a bit disconnected today. Bit disconnected. I feel that way from time to time when I'm coming to worship with everybody, with God. But let's do our best to honor God by really focusing on the meaning of the words of these songs or of this prayer as we go forward into the rest of the service. So let's collectively lift our hearts to God as we sing this next song, or whatever's coming next. Something like that. So I think those are our three main options that I can think of. The first is to do nothing, at least outwardly. The second is to break up the service but not comment on the issue. And the third is to actually make a comment. Because here's the thing, I don't want to berate a congregation and say, hey, sing up, you sinners. It may have nothing to do with their lack of spirituality. It could be a number of things that have happened. It might be my fault. Perhaps I've picked the wrong songs. It could be the worship team's fault in a sense that we're not really with it ourselves on that day. It could be something else has happened. Perhaps there's been some bad news that has spread through the congregation that I'm unaware of. Or maybe something's happened in the media that's significant that hasn't reached my ears yet, like the death of someone famous. And all these things can happen. Or maybe it's just that it's really hot and the air conditioning isn't functioning the way that it should be. There are lots of reasons why a congregation might not be connected, and we shouldn't just tell them off. That's not right. Certainly not before at least we tell ourselves off. But it's not just about telling people off. It's really about helping one another and together collectively to help get our focus on our great God and then enjoy the worship that God has given us to enjoy with him. So could you please, if I could ask a favor, think back to previous experiences you've had where this kind of thing has happened. Have you done some things that have worked well? Have you seen other people do things that have helped and worked well? Have you seen some things that have not gone well? Have you yourselves tried things that hasn't really worked to address the issue in a healthy, spiritual way? I'd love to know your experiences. I'd love to know your thoughts. And of those three options I've given, are there some others that I haven't considered? I'd like to know, because I know this isn't the last time I'm going to have to deal with that situation. And I'd like to have options in my mind for the next time that happens, whether it's this coming Sunday or sometime in the future. So leave a comment, please, anywhere you see or hear this recording. Leave it publicly in the box underneath so that we can learn from each other. And we learn best when we learn in community. If you have a friend who might enjoy this, perhaps they're participating in worship, they're leading worship, please pass the link on to them. If you are listening to this through Apple Podcasts or something like that, if you could leave me a review, just write a few words, even 2 sentences, that would be fantastic. And hit the like button, the subscribe button, and ding that bell if you're watching on YouTube. And I do hope that the next time you gather with all of your friends for collective, corporate worship of our great God, that even if there's a little bit of distraction, that you'll get over that, and then you'll be able to do what it says in Psalm 100, verse 2. Worship the Lord with gladness. Come before him with joyful songs. Until the next time, have a wonderful day. Take care and God bless.